If you are a connoisseur of California wines or you like the harder stuff like Jack Daniels, you may need to be looking for alternatives soon. A potential trade war between Canada and the United States could have a big impact on the price and availability of all kinds of goods. And while U.S. President Donald Trump has not yet applied tariffs on Canadian goods, he has hinted they could be coming as early as February 1st. As retaliation, BC Premier David Eby has suggested that the province could stop buying and selling American liquor. And for his perspective, we have reached Jeff Guinard. He is Executive Director of the Alliance of Beverage Licensees. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning.
Let's start with this. Just exactly how does purchasing alcohol from the U.S. for licensed establishments work? It's all purchased through the province of BC, correct?
Yeah, it all comes through a central warehouse. So the United States, the liquor distribution branch here in BC imports everything from the United States, and then BC's pubs, bars, restaurants, private liquor stores buy it from them. But it's a massive category of products, right? If you look at the wine industry, for example, British Columbians do a great job buying local. The biggest category is BC wine. The second biggest category is U.S. wines from California, Oregon, Washington. And because there are single vineyards in the United States larger than our entire wine industry, they have economies of scale that we don't have. So price points are a bit lower as well. So we'd end up having disruptions in our product selection, which we would probably be able to replace, but we'd often being able to replace them with products that are a bit more expensive. That doesn't sound like it's a very good idea for consumers. And it's not a great deal for the producers on the American side of the border who are wanting to sell our products here, who spent the last 100 years building those markets together.
Right. I remember in my business, in my old days in the restaurant business, we would buy spec products sometimes. So products that weren't listed with the LDB, but you would buy, you'd put an order in directly from the vineyard. And that would still have to go through the liquor distribution branch, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of peculiarities about how we have to order alcohol here in BC. We can talk about those another time. But at the end of the day, if there's, a trade war with the United States, which, I mean, you can imagine people in the liquor and hospitality industry who are still recovering financially from the pandemic and dealing with decreased consumer demand. And half of them are the hospitality industry is not making money. This is the last thing anyone needs. But we just think we spent 100 years or more building these partnerships and trade routes with our oldest friend, and our best neighbor. And now we're going to have a trade dispute that nobody asked for that'll simply punish small businesses, workers, and citizens on both sides of the border. So it's pretty frustrating to even be talking about this.
Hey, but if you have Donald Trump imposing tariffs, do you not think consumers might decide on their own to, you know what? I mean, I'm okay with ordering a Canadian wine, an Okanagan wine, some
For sure.
lovely Cabernet Franc from Naramata or something, rather than going to California.
Yeah, look, there has never, ever been a better time to buy Canadian, obviously, right? But you think of the supply chain disruption that this would cause, right? So you can buy products domestically, but there are certain things that we just don't produce in British Columbia. So, I mean, there's no Kentucky bourbon up here, right? It has to
There's
come from the
that.
United States. So if you were to replace those, I mean, the United States, when they send products, they're sending them on a train or on, a truck, and it can get if we replace them, we have to get things shipped in. Takes months to go across an ocean on large container ships, and that will have an increase on the cost of those products as well. So, of course, we're going to do our best to adapt and make sure customers still have all the options that they want. But it's a difficult thing for us to do. It costs time and money when we don't really have either of those. And there'll be certain products that'll just be gone from the market for as long as the trade war goes on, and that just feels deeply unfair to us.
Yeah, but if the LDB pulled Jack Daniels from the shelves, would the United States actually feel it?
Well, I think the Jack Daniels would definitely feel it. We purchase, millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year. I mean, the LDB purchases about $3 billion of goods every year, and a lot of that does come from the United States in the beer industry, the spirits industry, wine industry. And their industry, just like ours, is made up of a whole bunch of small businesses. I mean, here in BC, our liquor and hospitality industry is a $15 billion industry,
Yeah.
but that's made up of about 14,000 independent small businesses. So small disruptions in supply for any of those businesses add up to significant impacts. So I think it would be a negative impact on U.S. producers and Canadian consumers. And we'd be able to pivot and, take care of some of that demand by purchasing from domestic producers, but there's some things we just don't produce here. Look at the food industry. We don't really grow a lot of food in the winter because it's very cold here, right?
Well, and we do see things like, obviously no Kentucky whiskey, but we do see things like whiskeys made here and, very high quality gin and stuff like that. But you are paying a
Absolutely.
very, very premium price for those.
Yeah, that's often the challenge, right? I mean, you can get world-class spirits and wines and
Yeah.
beers here in Canada. The spirits is a bit more difficult. I mean, there's folks here in British Columbia who have just won world awards for their ryes and their scotches, and that's very impressive. But
Yeah.
our industry is quite small
Yeah.
compared to, companies like Jack Daniels in the United States. So we would not be able to deal with that entire demand just based on domestic products, and the prices would be more expensive, particularly if we have to add retaliatory tariffs on it as well, right? So it becomes quite complicated and punitive to consumers for a trade dispute that nobody on this planet is asking for.
All right. Well, so far we've managed to fend it off. And I was just reading in the New York Times that Wall Street certainly doesn't want to see any trade war or tariffs either. So,
Yeah,
fingers crossed that it's a threat that maybe may not come to fruition. Who knows? Jeff, great to hear
absolutely.
you.
Thanks very much. And as I said, never been a better time to buy Canadian.
All right. Thank you so much. You
My
take
pleasure.
care. That's Jeff Guinard, who is Executive Director of the Alliance of Beverage Licensees.